It's the morning drive with me, Tim Elliott's Mirror Business FM. Should there be a minimum age to use social media is the question that many people are asking at the moment. If you look at the example of Australia and then a number of governments across the world asking a similar question. Now, part of the discussions at the second 2026 meeting of the UAE Media Office recently centred on regulating children's social media use. And the meeting brought together voices from education, from human development, and the Community Development Council to consider how digital design, if you like, is shaping children's attention, their behaviour, and mental health. And the discussions also focused on psychological risks, cyberbullying, and sleep deprivation. So, number of areas to think about. Dr. Talal Sheikh is Associate Professor in the School of Mathematical and Computer Sciences at Heriot-Watt University in Dubai. And he's on the line now to consider whether social media is risky for children. And perhaps I hope to explain some of the mathematical and algorithmic side things as well. Dr. Talal, good to have you back on the show.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and let's have a good discussion today.
Let's hope so. So just overall thoughts, first of all, Dr. Talal, at this news. You've seen the example of Australia really setting, I suppose, the course in some ways. But what's your reaction?
I think, in a way, I cannot be biased in one direction or the other, but I think the way Australia has taken it is, in a way, it's good. It's actually they went with the idea of protecting children first, and these guys, these children are actually at the developing stage, and they wanted to protect them from any unwanted harm that can actually happen. If you think about it, basically all these social media platforms, they are actually sort of optimized for engagement. So, and you have algorithms, they're not intentionally made to cause harm, but the intention is usually commercial optimization. So once that happens, the AI or the algorithm that's running behind it, they're only looking at optimizing addictive patterns, and that becomes a problematic situation for developing users. And that's, I think, the main problem. So if you think about in the context of an algorithm that is specific objective to optimize engagement, then it will keep doing that. Right. And it's not for developmental protection, those kind of things.
Well, exactly. That's the point. I mean, it's the impact on learning, which is really at the heart of this, aside from the obvious aspects of, protection from online content that may not be as favorable as it could be. I mean, social media platforms, as you point out, they're engineered to capture attention within seconds, with the way cuts are very rapid, it's very stimulative, there's novelty stuff, and it's this idea of constant rewards, new videos that might be attractive. Over time, that kind of causes us to expect and maybe even to seek out frequent stimulation and these kind of quick shifts. So if you're involved in a real task that takes actual effort, and you're a young person, like reading or doing homework or just having to listen in class, that's not the same. It's not as immediately rewarding. So it's kind of easy to see how if you consume social media excessively, it can be very disruptive to people, in a learning situation at school.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, like, you're always keeping the brain at a high stimulus.
Yeah.
So you want always to be engaged at that level. So if a lecturer does not, give attention to, let's say, all the things like with sound, with music, or with captions, people just drift away, and it gets even more challenging for young children because they get easily distracted, and we sort of allowing the brain, because of this continuous engagement, to be distracted. And you can see the effects of, they get easily bored, they want to keep doing things, or they even get quite fidgety, the children. So I think that has been an effect. It's actually documented. So obviously some countries have decided to go ahead with the bans until the social media platforms, they actually sort of optimize their algorithms for children of this age.
I mean, the thing is, what's really clear about this is it's not just children, obviously. I mean, it applies to all of us. It's not just about how much time we spend online. It's about how digital environments, if you like, are engineered, and whether design itself needs to change to safeguard attention and learning and emotional development. So I think it's a shared responsibility, isn't it? Because it applies to all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if you think about it, when because at the end of the day, they are our children, they are the next generation, right? So we cannot actually just let it happen. Okay, so I mean, when you think about the AI aspects of it, so AI basically amplifies personalization. Okay, so by doing that, that can increase both the positive and negative effects, right? So if you think about education, if I use it in my class and all that, it's, let's say, for education and creativity, it can be very powerful. But then let's say if there's a harmful content not pre-detected by the AI, or anything like excessive engagement, it can accelerate exposure, and there might be certain content you don't want people to see, right?
Yeah.
So uh, so again, I come back to the same point. It is not inherently harmful, but it magnifies the incentives it's given, right? So it should, like you said, it should, if we try to incentivize or prioritize safety alongside engagement, then probably the outcome can change, and that could lead to a different set of behaviors, right? So right now it is like, I mean, in the neuroscience literature, you'll see, okay, you'll get a dopamine response, and you always want to go higher and higher and higher, kind of an engagement to give extra stimulus to the brain. So you start getting that kind of a desired behavior. But maybe that's not what you want with small children, especially with developing minds. And we need to figure out that safety aspect around that. It's there, but you know companies have commercial objectives, so they need to decide on that. So it's good that the governments are also stepping in and coming up with specific rules so that they don't take advantage of these stuff.
Well, it's that old phrase, isn't it? All things in moderation, I guess. So perhaps curbs are required. Our brains just aren't meant to work at this heightened sense of activity for such sustained periods. So we don't know of the effect long term. So let me just ask you this. So the story really is the UAE is considering whether there should be a minimum age for social media. That minimum age, from most reports, 14 seems to be the discussed kind of age limit, if you like. Most people see this as a psychological issue, but if I can take your point of view into focus, if you like, for a moment. How do you view this through the lens of technology and through a lens of mathematics, Dr. Talal?
So okay, so I mean, I think there are two ways to think about it, right? So every generation, when we think about, they adapt to new media. Okay, so there's a generation where they had no TV, then TV came in, right? And then there was internet, and us, or enjoying those kind of stuff. But then the difference now is that systems have become more personalized in the sense that they dynamically learn from the users, right? And what happens is they optimize the behavior in real time. Okay. So if you think about traditional media, they did not personalize content minute by minute. So this, at least, like if you think about people above a certain age, they can say what actually is happening. They can actually think about it or talk to their peer group and say, okay, maybe, this is right, this is wrong. They have some, let's say, a moral idea about what's right, what's wrong, what's okay, and what's not okay, right? But younger children might not have that, and they might not actually even tell their parents that they are seeing this or something, like, because I mean, from a young age they have been seeing, let's say, even simple things like Coco Melon, right? There's a channel with that, where kids, you will see the parents taking their kids on the carts, and just because they're crying, they'll pop up this animation so that just keep quiet. From a young age, they have been. That's not social media, but it's just a video that they just want the attention grabbing thing, so the children keep quiet, and that's a little bit scary in the sense the scale and adaptiveness is quite unprecedented, and that's why the regulations are out and people are thinking about it, especially at this age, where people don't are just getting into the transitioning to the adulthood, where they actually starting to know more things about themselves, more things about life, how things work and stuff like that. And the issue is, um, an algorithm is not really there to incentivize all-rounded development, right? So
Mm.
it's like, if a child is interested in, let's say, arts and craft, and all their social feeds would be around arts and craft, right? But if it is something else, whether it's games or a specific kind of games, then they might be only seeing those kind of stuff. So it sort of just makes a child more one-dimensional rather than a fully developed overall personality. So I guess that's the issue.
It is. I mean, the worry is that children are suffering sleep deprivation from this kind of infinite scrolling, the doom scrolling that we all do. But it's the maths and the algorithm behind the scrolling that's interesting. This variable reward schedule. So if a reward's predictable, 1 and 1 is always 2. The brain we get used to that and we lose interest in that, don't we? But the algorithms use intermittent reinforcement, so it's a probability kind of game, if you like. So algorithms know that if they give you that hit, a funny video or a like, irregularly, you're going to keep scrolling. And now, as adults, we know that, we're told that, we keep doing it. But if you're 10 years old, the mathematical probability of the next video being better than the current one, that's pretty irresistible. So you keep scrolling and keep scrolling, and where's the end is the worry.
Yeah, there's no end. That's the thing,
Yeah.
because the apps are made in such a way that it doesn't load one video at a time. It loads 10. It preloads it because they realize that, if there is a delay between the video you're seeing and the next video, and you skip it, then you would just probably just stop looking at the app. So it sort of preloads the videos both front and back. So imagine like you have a tick, you can swipe up to reach one side or swipe down to reach the other video. So the algorithm is built on giving you that kind of content that it thinks, okay, now that it thinks that you are actually liking. So what are the factors that it thinks that you like it, is basically how long you stay and watch that particular content. So a child might not really sometimes they might just see the things and they might be busy, but the algorithm thinks that the child is liking this content. Maybe they were not really scrolling or searched for it, but next time it has a reference that, okay, this so and so account looked at this kind of videos, so maybe I can now start pushing in more similar kind of videos, right? And obviously there is, if there is likes and favorites or whatever there is, then then that adds more uh, touch points to the algorithm to say, okay, now this is something what the person wants, so, and that's the issue. And I guess, with all the systems, the issue is not only about what content is being exposed, it's about who is on the other side. Now social media is always, it's just not the content but the person on the other side trying to interact, and there might be a lot of different good actors and bad actors, and that's where the other problem is. So they want to protect all that, and that's what I can say.
The final question for you. There's an argument that people make that children need social media for digital literacy. As a mathematician, do you agree with that?
Um, hmm. I think they do need it. Okay, but let's say uh, it needs to be done with some sort of limits. There needs to be some boundaries under which children should be able to consume that kind of content, right? So, so I feel like, if you think about when people talk about screen time, right? And they always consider saying that, okay, screen time is harmful, right? But generally that's not the issue. Okay, it's the type of content or the algorithmic exposure patterns that can matter more, rather than just saying, okay, the child has 3 hours of screen time and today he or she is like at 5 hours, right? So so when you think about, if the content is about something to study, and maybe it could be in a case like students from one part of the country are interacting with some other students in a supportive educational environment, right? That's okay, I believe, right? So it shouldn't be that they should be avoided from that kind of interaction, because that is the technology, right? It's about bringing things closer. But I think what needs to be prioritized is what's happening, what's the content around that. As long as it is supportive and it is okay for the children, then I think it's okay.
Dr. Talal Sheikh is an associate professor at the School of Mathematical and Computer Sciences at Heriot-Watt University in Dubai. It's a debate that's going to rage on, there's no doubt about that. But Dr. Talal, thank you for joining us this morning.